You're listening to a Countout Podcast. Everybody, and welcome to the post show. AEW X New Japan's Forbidden Door 2 is behind us, and we are reacting live to giving you our immediate thoughts to a show that, quite honestly, Scotty, this show fucking ruled, dude. I am hippity hyped. I thought this match was so good. You can already tell by my energy here that I am way more energetic than I typically am for these shows. It's past midnight, so it's officially my birthday as well. So
Happy birthday!
I'm into it. I'm hyped. I got a great show of wrestling. I'm jazzed. You know, I got to see some Great Khan chops. You know, I got to see some chops from Great Khan. You know, I'm loving to see it. And I'm feeling good. How are you feeling right now?
I'm fucking tired. I am zonked. Though, to be fair, my nap that I planned to take was like 30 minutes total. So I'm working on about 3 hours and 30 minutes of sleepage today. So I think my tiredness is fair. That being said, I'm all jacked up and I'm ready to go. This show was better than Forbidden Door 1 after like the first hour and a half.
Yeah, totally,
that's how good this was.
Totally true. I would argue, I mean, it wasn't bad. We'll get to it. It wasn't bad, but the worst match is probably like a 2.5, and like there's a bunch of other 3 1/4s to like
there's a few sprinkled in there, but then there's like everything that's like 3 3/4 and higher.
Yeah, there's at least 3 matches with me that are 4 1/4 plus. You can probably guess what those 3 matches are.
I think I can. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe one of them I'm off. It's possible. I don't know.
We'll find out. So give me. I'm setting up tweets and everything to get this, posted out there. Give me your overall thoughts about AEW X New Japan's Forbidden Door.
It is everything people dreamed of when AEW was created. I think that's my best way to say it. When AEW was created, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks left New Japan. This was the long-term hope. The long-term hope is that they come together in the end, work together to the point where each side benefits from one another. And you watch this show top to bottom, I don't know how you could say anything but that these two are working together to make pro wrestling magic month in and month out at this point. It's not just Forbidden Door. It is a pretty much monthly occurrence, but this is so far the pinnacle of the relationship. And the crazy thing is, it can get better.
Yeah, there's still, I mean, because this is what, in a larger sense, when you talk about like brand splits, right? The beauty of a brand split is that if you separate your roster out so much, is that when you bring them back together, you can have beautiful moments. And obviously, this is a much larger scale of promotions. There are so many more matches you can still do. Okada has just wrestled Bryan Danielson, but last year he was in a 4-way. We still never got Tanahashi CM Punk, and after Tanahashi's performance, I'm not sure. We still haven't gotten Zack Sabre Jr. versus Bryan Danielson. And there's still probably many people that Okada could face, right? There are so many things still on the table, despite 2 back-to-back fantastic shows. And because of that, You have to do a bigger arena next year, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Because this show was fantastic. And it's going to sell tickets next year as well.
I'm going to have a lot of thoughts about pretty much everything about what the future holds, I think, because I think there is a lot of future points in some of these matches.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree.
But here's the thing about Okada. The biggest match that these two companies could put together is the match we've seen 4 times before.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
That's fair. One day we're getting Okada Omega one more time.
Mm-hmm.
As much as people love Omega and Ospreay, and trust me, I'm going to praise the hell out of it later, so don't come at me.
Mm-hmm.
But as much as people love that match, the pinnacle of professional wrestling, not just AEW New Japan coming together, is that matchup one more time all these years later.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hopeful, while they're still both in the shape and fashion that they are, we do get it. But I want that to be in a New Japan ring. I think, my biggest takeaway from this show is how much I love watching a New Japan directed show.
Yeah.
Like the way camera work is done.
The production value.
I was watching certain matches and I was like, this would legitimately be better if it was on a jokingly in the Tokyo Dome. If it was New Japan's Japanese camera work.
TV Asahi was producing this.
Yeah. Just for some things, not everything. But I just realized that more and more as I watch. It's like, this just camera work can be so phenomenal when you're not just on the hard cam and stuff like that. But I'm sitting here acting like this show wasn't one of, if not the best of the year. And we had incredible matches throughout the night. And we had incredible moments throughout the night. When your world title matches are the level that they were, which aren't that high, there's still so much more to explore in this relationship.
Yeah. It's so good. It's so good, my guy. And you're 100% right. I mean, like, the TVIC production value is next level. And, maybe they also have all the theme music for the wrestlers. Correct. But yeah, no.
I didn't even notice.
I didn't notice either. My dad called during the ELP match, so I missed that. And then the Zack Sabre Jr. one, I didn't even realize that it was the wrong one. I
did realize that one because I like his new one a lot, and I didn't hear it, and I was like, oh.
But I'm fine with it. I thought this show top down was killer. Barely any filler.
The filler was to me, the only filler of the show was the one match between the two big matches.
yeah,
which was the purpose of the match that spot.
Which I guess actually is filler. In a way,
it legitimatally was filler. Could have just been called filler.
Yeah.
Naito wore his t-shirt. He knew it was filler.
But I thought this show was fantastic. I'm super jazzed. I thought this was a fantastic show.
This is no doubt the most positive you've ever been in a post-match review, post AEW event review.
Well, because it's also what was also fantastic about it, and I think it was like this with Forbidden Door last year, if I recall. No filler, there was no lull, right? There was no lull of matches where an hour goes by and it's just like, oh my God, get to the next thing.
Right.
There was none of that.
It was the opposite of Double or Nothing.
Oh my God, yeah. There was nothing that was just like, come on, let's get to the next bit. And even then, like the bad match, quote unquote, the worst match on the show was
still fun.
In my opinion, was the 6-man tag with Sting and Naito and Jericho and all that stuff. That was still fun. And that was still interesting to see. And just sort of like Sting and Naito teaming up to take down Suzuki is just a weird sentence. Like even then it was like fun. Like, but even then, what was the time on that one? It was
quick.
15 minutes. 15 minutes. No big deal.
Really?
Yeah.
It didn't feel that long.
It didn't feel that long either. But yeah, no.
No, I was still decompressing.
That's fair.
Match prior.
That's fair. But yeah, I thought this was a fantastic show. If you're listening to this, if you're listening to this live, you are part of our Patreon, so we greatly appreciate your support. Kyle is in the chat. How's it going, Kyle? I hope you also enjoyed the show. I thought this was a fantastic show. I have Trevor Dame's Twitter. You know that he's live tweeting the
I'll let you take care of that
the
tonight.
presser. Yeah, no worries. He hasn't. I don't think the presser has started yet.
I have it up, so I'll tell you when it's going.
Okay, cool. You can tell us who has showed up for the presser. But yeah, I thought this was a fantastic show. Let's get into it. Let's dive deep into it. How do you want to do this? We always mix it up. Do you want to do top
Let's
to bottom?
go. I don't know. I have no idea. This show's so like yeah, I guess top to bottom. I don't know, because like the bottom we're just gonna be like, yeah, it's fine. How about hear me out here? This is crazy. We do top, filler, then back to the bottom.
I think that's way too confusing.
And let's just end with Omega and Ospreay.
All right. Let's do the semi-main and then the main. Let's do the main, semi-main, and then everything else.
Let's be messy bitches.
Just like Tenzan's #1 fan. Let's be messy bitches. Main event for the show, of course, just finished. It was Bryan Danielson defeats Kazuchika Okada. Don't have time yet here on Cage Match, but this match was great. This was really, really great. I'll let you take the floor first, Scotty. What did you think about the main event? Danielson defeats Okada, and what I thought was a shocking win, or at least how it came about.
I was stunned. I was legitimately stunned. Is it fair to say a match is both great and underwhelming at the same time?
Yeah, and I will agree with that.
Because I thought this match was great.
Yes.
But they left so much on the table that you'd think they're running this back at, I don't know, maybe inside the Tokyo Dome, perhaps.
But what's even interesting about that is that, like, Okada, like, never taps out.
This is the second time.
Yeah. He never does it. And it's weird because it is like they left stuff on the floor, it feels like. Even Kevin Kelly is like, it was an even bout. He's trying to save face for Okada, big old company man that he is. Even though I guess now that works for both companies. Kevin Kelly is the Forbidden Door. But it's like, it's definitive loss. Kazuchika Okada tapped out. And I do agree that the match was great, but there was an element of slight disappointment. And I don't necessarily would say it was disappointment. I would rather point fingers towards what I will call now the seizure spot that occurred during this match.
I didn't like that. That feels like it punched everyone, right? Almost like in the stomach.
It took the air out of the room so much. And then you get Doc Samson coming in, and he's like, the guy's actively having a seizure, and Doc Samson's like, no, good to wrestle. Keep going. Get back in that ring, my guy. And it just...
You're all good, brother.
It just became unbelievable. Which, great match. I think if you remove that section, the match wouldn't have been as, I guess, deflating or disappointing or whatever you want to call it. But because it was great, and then that just happened. You're like, what the fuck is happening? Like, and like, it's, if you're able to get worked by it, then maybe it was interesting. I haven't seen anyone on Twitter be like genuinely concerned about that.
I just seen someone say it was a bad spot to do. Yeah, which I agree.
Yeah, because at this point, everyone knows that he's a liar. He's a fucking liar over here. So yeah, I guess that was really the only like really disappointing spot. But beyond that, I mean, I thought the work was fantastic. I thought Okada's obviously drop kicks were fantastic.
I could watch him drop kick and do nothing else the entire match. I'd probably give it like 4 stars minimum.
Do you think? Serious question. Do you think Tony Schiavone knew much about Kazuchika Okada, or do you think he heard that he was trained in his debut in Mexico and thought that he was a high flyer luchador? Because
Oh,
for a
absolutely.
long while it felt like he's like, he's not doing any high flying. He just walked out of the ring. Interesting. It's like, yeah, Tony, that's what he does. He's not a high
Yeah.
flyer, my guy.
I think one thing I felt about this show, and this is a very like me critique, is that I really wish Taz was on the back end of the show rather than the front end, because I think he calls these things really well when like it gets serious. Um, as opposed to Tony Schiavone, who I don't think had a clue who Kazuchika Okada was as a wrestler, other than he's this guy. Listen, hell, Jim Ross would have been good in the spot because Jim Ross knows everything about Okada. Ross had that great call last year when Okada first showed up, where he said, "There's nobody better in the world than Kazuchika Okada," and I think he would have done a great job. Though it's at the end of the night, so he would have been sleeping. But you get my point. I think that's like one little critique. But back to the match itself. I mean, we have Final Countdown. Obviously, crowd loses their freaking mind. I personally lost my freaking mind.
I popped
because
out. I popped out of the couch.
when they were doing the spiral thing, I was like, they got it. Because you know, they wouldn't have done something big and special otherwise. And it was just incredible. The energy, the feeling with them just standing across the ring from each other, coming, you know, an hour after what we had seen, obviously, in what that prior match, not even an hour. And I just walked away from it, and mind you, I walked into this show thinking, one, Okada was winning, two, we're never going to see it again. I'm walking out of this show seeing Danielson win and saying they have to do this again. They have to, and they have to do it in Japan. The American Dragon wins in America. The Rainmaker wins in Japan. Feels right. Because they just left so much on the table. There's so much to this match, so much to this story that now I want to dive into. Obviously, it doesn't fit the current arc of Kazuchika Okada in New Japan, but I don't know. You got to do it again now. You have to, because you know what they have in them.
Yeah.
And we didn't even sniff that.
Yeah, because I think ultimately that is sort of like the drawback to one-off dream matches, is that they're exciting and they're always great matches, supposedly, assuming they have chemistry and everything. But the drawback to that is that, like, unless there isn't really like a story built into it beyond great wrestlers, which again, I'm cool with great wrestlers, but you know, if you had a little bit of build up, if they did a feud with these two guys, the third match would be great. The third match would be unstoppable. You know?
I guess my best comparison for it is Mercedes Moné and Mayu Iwatani in a lot of ways, right? They left a lot on the table, right? You walked away from you walk away from a lot of dream matches expecting more.
Yeah, I think that's possible part of it.
Unless it becomes a story. I know Mayu and Mercedes, that's likely a story. Will I know if this is a story anytime soon? Probably not, because Okada's going to go back to Japan and do the G1 and feud with Kaito and do all this stuff. And Danielson's going to probably be on commentary for the next month healing. So I don't know. But I guess that's part of the intrigue of this as well. I hope they go back at it because they were flawless in there. They worked a professional match in the best way, but you have another 20 minutes, right? This match felt like it just ended.
Yeah,
that's what it felt like.
That shock win. I was thinking to myself, like, maybe a minute before the finish, thinking, you know, I can see Okada winning here. Like, if anyone can, like, you know, beat their guy, I could see, like, Danielson losing. I could see him eating the loss to Okada. That makes sense. And I was like, yeah, but, you know, Ospreay beat Omega. I don't see if AEW would want both of their guys losing. And then like the finish happened, and I was like, "Whoa, holy shit!" I thought we had like at least 5 more minutes in, and I think that the finish succeeded in what it was meant to do. Don't get me wrong there, but it was just like a sheer surprise. Where it was like, "No, I didn't fully see that one happening."
I was ready for him to get to the rope. I was ready for another 5, 10, 15 minutes.
But we did a surprise finish, and I think that definitely says something. Do you have an idea of a star for this match? It sounds like it's both highly rated for us, but do you have an idea? Or are you still percolating?
I am still percolating. I got everything else in. This one, I think because I'm still reacting
Yeah.
to like how it ended, and I'm trying to think back to everything because when a match ends like that, you almost forget everything else.
Sure.
You forget that great tombstone on the ramp that led to the convulsing, but which wasn't great. But you also get the, when he's doing the yes, and you get the rainmaker. Oh, it's just so good.
Yeah, one-armed yes.
Uh,
I mean, that's the thing. I guess I didn't expect this match to have a callback to the Randy Orton Daniel Bryan match from Raw that however many years ago. When I was thinking about what matches we may call back to, I wasn't expecting that one. So it's
no, but Randy and Okada have the same build. That's
true.
about all I'll give them.
That's true. And both of their moves come from out of nowhere.
Kinda. I don't know. Maybe we're stretching
there. Let's move on to the semi.
What was it? Do you have a star?
I'm teetering on like a 4.25.
That's where I'm thinking.
That's what I'm sort of thinking.
I think it's definitely above 4, but I think there were 2 matches on this show better than it.
Agreed. I'm sitting kind of right now like 4.25. I'm gonna ponder it. I think again, if it didn't have the seizure spot, I think it could have been like 4.5. But that lowered it again.
And Caesar Spawn kept going. I mean, it was going to be an all-time. It had all the makings to be an all-timer. And then with those 2 things, the sudden end and the convulsing, it's like, damn it, run it back, baby.
It seems like the presser is having some technical difficulties, so we'll check in later.
I'm still staring at Forbidden Door Media Scrum, so don't even worry about it for the next while.
The semi-main of the show was the 6-man tag team match with Darby, Sting, and Tetsuya Naito defeating the team of Minoru Suzuki, Chris Jericho, and Sammy Guevara. We already sort of kind of alluded how we felt about this match. We both sort of seems like the weakest match of the show. It was the cool down spot. It was after Omega Ospreay 2 and before Danielson Okada, so I don't blame anybody. But for 15 minutes, what we got was some fine wrestling. T-shirt Naito is out. Sting's doing the Joker gimmick, which someone tweeted out. I don't remember. I might have been Trevor Dame saying about how, I think it was Garrett Kidney, which works for him, tweeting out that, I just realized that this feud is going to become Joker Sting versus Painmaker Jericho, which, that's whatever.
Painmaker Jericho sucks ass.
Agreed.
Just want everyone to know that.
Darby and Sammy didn't have like a lot of nonsense really for me, and
Sammy almost killed Sting.
Sammy almost
twice.
Well, hold on. Sammy almost killed Sting and then did a spot later in the match where he didn't want to kill Sting and he was forced to, and then did a 630 to Sting, but Sting didn't move away fast enough, so he ended up still hurting.
It's because of the table placement. I think he like the table. It was too close to the apron, so he couldn't get off. We must remember Sting's a 60-year-old man.
Hey, it's hard for 60-year-old men to get off.
Naito wore his T-shirt. Shout out to him, huh?
Big shout out to Naito.
The moment he took off the suit and had the shirt underneath, I was like, someone had a great tweet. They said he thinks this is the night 1 of the Forbidden Door tour.
Oh man, this isn't Hurricane Hall. I'm not doing anything for this. Yeah, I mean, this is. I mean, beyond like a New Japan promoted show, the last time he was in the States was for Ring of Honor, and that guy was not working. And he wasn't the. I would argue he wasn't the only Los Ingobernables guy, or at least former Los Ingobernables guy that wasn't fully working. But that's fine. We'll get to him when we get to him.
Has he only ever worked? And when I say that, like, has he only ever fully worked in like that one match with Ibushi in the MSG when he's coming to America?
No. He has also, I would argue, worked hard during the Ibushi Omega versus Hiromu and Naito match that took place at CEO, the gaming convention in California, I think it was. So we know of at least 2 times where Naito took the t-shirt off and was like, all right, here we go. Because I remember that match being crazy because it was neck bumps galore for a gaming convention. So that match I recall being insane. This match wasn't. This match on the show on Forbidden Door, this 6-man wasn't crazy.
Most forgettable.
Yeah. It's a little bit of certainly disappointment, I guess, but I think Darby Allin and Sammy could have done more stuff here to create something.
They should have been, since they're the young guys.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I'm not necessarily going to say that Naito's an old guy, but he is 41. You have 4 old guys and 2 young guys.
He has the worst knees of the match. What else do I need to say?
And he's battling Sting. Yeah, I think the problem here was that I think Darby and Sammy, they didn't do enough interactions between them and instead used them to interact with the older dudes.
Sting's the first guy on the podium.
Yeah. And also, like, they
No, he's the first guy on the media scrum.
Oh, fucking Sting?
Darby.
Interesting. That's weird. Maybe Sting's...
You can't have Punk on there.
You can't have Punk.
I hope.
You probably can't have the Elite. Do you think we'll ever get Punk and the Elite on these scrums ever again?
Well, Kenny lost. So he doesn't put losers on.
That's true. So we're talking...
Danielson probably get on there.
Danielson, Ospreay could be on there.
Bruv.
Cage Match has this wrong, by the way. Cage Match has it as Kenny Omega defeats Will Ospreay. Gotta fix that one right there.
Can confirm that did not happen.
Mm-hmm.
Watched it with my own eyes.
I'd love to see Eddie Kingston in the scrum. I think that could be a very interesting oppressor for him.
Sounds dangerous.
But yeah, sort of a disappointment. But that's all right. Let's move on to the 0 Hour.
0 Hour, baby.
I'm just going to do the grouping of the matches.
Absolutely.
I don't have to go too in depth with them. 8-man tag team match: Mogul Embassy, Bishop Khan, Brian Cage, Swerve Strickland, Toa Leona defeat the team of Chuck Taylor, Rocky Romero, Trent Beretta, and El Desperado. You have the Owen Hart Women's Tournament quarterfinal match with Athena defeating Billy Starks. You have El Phantasmo defeating Stu Grayson. And then you have Los Ingobernables de Japón, Bushi, Hiromu Takahashi, and Shingo Takagi defeating Jeff Cobb, Kyle Fletcher, and TJP. What do you think of this sort of group, this 0 Hour, as it were?
Good little few matches. Not as good as last year's. This is the one thing about Forbidden Door I'm going to say was not as good as last year's.
Yeah, that's fair. This one, I mean, I don't remember any of these matches. Again, granted, my dad called me during like the Athena match, so I basically missed the next 3. But as far as I can tell,
liked Phantasmo and Grayson.
I think I'm gonna rewatch Phantasmo.
You like Grayson. Phantasmo, right?
Yeah, I'm fine on him.
I don't like him, so I'm lower anyways.
Yeah, I'm fine on him.
It's fine.
And I like Stu Grayson, and I think they can both work. 7 minutes.
Hiromu and Shingo were fun.
Of course they are. Of course they were fun. I feel like that match was just straight up like New Japan, and it's like I don't necessarily have to watch that match, but I'll probably rewatch it anyways.
Shingo should have done more.
Shingo? Yeah, it's weird.
It's on this card.
It's weird that Shingo and Hiromu were in the pre-show. That's just weird to me. I mean, Shingo maybe not, but Hiromu?
Let me see. Where would I have placed them? Anywhere else. Doesn't. I don't know. Add them both to. I don't know. You could have added them to. You could have made a 10-man match in that.
Yeah,
semi.
But then you got 2 10-mans.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, no, I get you. You can, but you at least make it at 8-man. Add Hiromu and then add, I don't know, Matt Menard or something. I don't know.
Daniel Garcia and put Shingo in the other match.
Mm-hmm. Ooh.
That would have been so good. Not that the Fatal 4-Way was bad. But
yeah, fine. 0 Hour could have been better. Not as good as last year's. I don't recall anything else.
Let's talk about some knee deficiencies.
Jeez. AEW World Title match opening the show. MJF defeats Hiroshi Tanahashi.
Tough.
Let's have an honest conversation about Tanahashi. This match was fully MJF just doing heel shtick the entire time to give Tanahashi time and so that he can move and do his thing. It's, I've seen tweets about, he's in his dad era. Kojima is like in his granddad era, and this guy can still go. Yuji Nagata is in his granddad era and can still go.
Those two didn't do. Let me rephrase. Those two didn't do the athleticism or have the athleticism. Jericho's freaking out at this press conference right now.
What?
It's a sting. He just walked in and is screaming.
Okay.
He with the way he wrestles, right, landing, the high fly flows and all that, and the way he paces himself, right, he's always running, he's always doing these things. If he lost his knees, he was going to lose a lot of his offense or the best of him. Truthfully, I think last year was his last great year.
Yeah.
And I think everything else now is like he'll benefit from being in the big trios matches because he can do a few spots and have backup. He can do the tag. He can do the dream tag with Okada.
Yep.
And because Okada can do a lot of that, but he can't do the big singles matches anymore. And I think that's an okay reality to accept. Now, that being said, he's in the G1 Climax. So
he's a top build guy in his block with Naito.
He can so the thing with Tanahashi is some days his knees will work. Like there are just some days they work, but those couldn't be more unpredictable if you tried. So,
but I think also those days are becoming few and far between.
Yeah, his best bet is to figure out something like a Keiji Muto did.
Yes,
because Keiji Muto has a similar style to him in that they really focused on the flying and stuff like that. If Tanahashi can do that, he can really make the best of his last couple of years here. But there is definitely a reality that we are dealing with now that Tanahashi can't be the guy in these big world title matches anymore. Yeah. And listen, that's okay. He's 46 years old. He has a Hall of Fame career behind him. He doesn't. 46? He's 46? I think he's 46.
He is 46. 5 years older than Naito.
Yeah. So I think that's about the way I feel about it. Naito's saved though, because Naito's style isn't like Tanahashi's. Naito's not flying through the air or anything.
Yeah.
Naito's moving, he's running, but he's not flying. He's not doing the high fly flow. And when there's ropes and turnbuckles that are different for him, so he's like, oh shit.
I'm going to wave my hands at that because every other Japanese star was able to handle the ropes. Kojima did it. Okada did it. Everyone else was able to hit these rope spots except for Tana.
Well, he can't move his knees, so it makes it worse.
I know, but I think that's what it is. I think that rope dialogue is just an excuse for the knees, which is
I'm here to get Tana. If anyone deserves excuses, it's Tanahashi.
I'm really looking at this block for G1, and we'll get more into the G1 Climax talk. But you have the D block. At one point in time, this was a better block, but now I'm like after Swerve, after whatever the match he had previous in Japan. It might have been the 6-man with BCC. With this match, an MJF match of Forbidden Door. D block, the top two guys you had were Hiroshi Tanahashi and Naito. And Naito is fine. Tanahashi is looking real rough. Then you got Goto, Zack Sabre Jr., Toriano, Jeff Cobb, Shane Hayes, and Alex Coughlin. If Tanahashi is going to wrestle like this in the G1 Climax, that block just got way worse. And also, do you think, I mean, they obviously see him as a guy that is older. They obviously see him as a guy that can take losses to someone like MJF. Do you think that they are going to give Tanahashi a lot of points in this G1 Climax, or do you think he's going to be losing a lot? I think there's a chance he is sub 50% in wins.
Yeah, he's gonna be around 500. I think that's the best way to look at it. He's gonna be around 500. Alex Coughlin might be the new young guy that gets a big win over Tanahashi. You know, that's a new yearly thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'll actually appreciate this one, unlike most of them that beat him.
Yep.
Zach's gonna be higher than him. Naito's gonna be higher than him.
Cobb.
I don't remember the rest of the block.
Cobb, Sabre Jr.
I said Zach.
Okay, yeah. I think Cobb.
Zach,
I think
Naito.
Cobb could be higher than him.
Cobb probably is higher than him based off his current standing, and then him and Goto around the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably around 500.
If anything, there's a chance Goto could be ahead of him. I think that's certainly possible.
Truthfully, your best bet for best Tanahashi match in this tournament coming up will be with Zack Sabre Jr. because it's grounded.
That's true. That's very true. And I do know that
him and Naito work, but they don't ever, like, I feel like anytime they match up in the G1 now, they just like rein it in for each other.
Yeah.
They're like, all right,
if I do recall, there's like a weird scheduling thing where Tanahashi has like a week off of the G1 stuff before the Naito match. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that.
They're trying to squeeze out as much as they can,
which is fair,
and that's what you should do. Listen, at the end of the day, Kojima's in a lot better version. Kojima was also shut down for a few years, essentially.
That's true. That is.
He's been brought back up in a lot of ways. The one thing with Tanahashi, he's never been shut down. They keep putting him out there and putting him out there. Oh, you guys need a big match with a New Japan guy? All right, we'll just send Tanahashi.
And Kojima hasn't necessarily changed his style, at least that my knowledge, like insanely.
No.
But Tanahashi's at a point where like you can see in his face, in his eyes that he wants to go, but he can't.
Yeah.
I think someone tweeted that I think someone said it was like Drew Brees in 2020. Where it's like the guy can't go at all, but he still has such a great mind for it. That's like, you can put together something, but your body can't do anything.
That's a good comparison. It's just like the old vet who wants to keep going, but he just got nothing left. I think Tanahashi can shine here or there in spots, but you can't. Like, this is the last time I think he gets a big singles match.
Sadly, yes. Yes.
Listen, I've seen a lot of big singles Hiroshi Tanahashi matches, and there's a lot more that I haven't seen that I look forward to going back into the archives and doing, because that's the fact. He is one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
And if his limit of being one of the best in the world and one of the best each time he goes out there is 46 years old, that's fine by me.
That's true. We'll see how he is in the G1 Climax. Looking at the presser, like you said, it opened up with Sting and Darby. Some notes. Corey Lieb from The Observer asked Sting about the blow to a head he took during the match. I assume he's talking about the Sammy Guevara one, the Sammy Guevara spot. Sting just jokes it off and says he had pre-match problems with his head, but he's good. Corey asks about Sting's time frame of retiring. Is it Wembley? Sting says time is running down for him for sure. But he's going beyond Wembley. Although he's really excited to go there. Tony keeps telling him he can stay as long as he wants, but he thinks his time is almost done.
I respect a man who wants to retire on his own.
Yes, and on his time and dime. John Pollock
didn't get to.
John Pollock from Post asked generally about this AEW run. Sting says at first when he signed, he took it one day at a time, then a week at a time, playing by ear as to how his body feels. He's had moments where he felt like his body wasn't performing like he needed to. Sting points out 2 Arthur Ashe shows ago, he felt like he wasn't performing up to how he needed to, but Darby told him he killed it. Sting says, quote, I have to wait to see how my body is feeling. Long story short. 2 Arthur Ashe. I feel like that was like one of his first matches and it kicked ass. Like that was one of like the 6-man chaotic brawls in the Ashe Stadium. And that match was wild.
Let me take a look, Ski.
Yeah. So whatever I guess the first Arthur Ashe show is what he's probably referring to.
I don't think he wrestled at that.
I think he could have.
According to this, he did. He wrestled the FTR.
Yeah. So he says he thought he wasn't good in that match, and Darby was like, "No, you killed it." What's the cage match rating on that one?
7.42. Second highest rated match after Danielson and Omega.
That's fair. Jordan from Wild World of Wrestling goes to ask Sting a question, and Darby jokingly asks when he's going to get a question. That's funny. So Jericho comes in, interrupting, and cuts a screaming promo demanding a tornado tag between Darby and Sting versus Sammy Guevara, and guess what? The Painmaker. Jericho hits Sting's water bottle off a bat. Tony makes the match. Jericho leaves. So he says Tony makes the match, but he doesn't say when is the match. I would presume this Dynamite.
That'll be a great match.
Yeah, that should be very good.
They do Texas tornado matches really well.
And like we talked about, like that FTR one, like the chaotic any match that had the chaotic Sting diving off the balcony bullshit was insanely good.
I think that'll be actually a lot better than what we watched here.
Darby asks if Sammy is cleared. He and Tony note Sammy's getting checked by a doctor, apparently. They are cutting.
He killed himself?
Yeah, they are cutting the Sting Darby segment short. Tony doing some whatever. Next up,
Bravo's going crazy right now.
Should I wait till he's off the screen?
Yeah,
because he's got a lot of stuff.
Each person.
He's got a lot of stuff happening with him. So next match was the Owen Hart Foundation Men's Tournament quarterfinal match. This is CM Punk defeating Satoshi Kojima. And if you thought Tanahashi couldn't go, well, guess what? Kojima can go, and he went I'm losing it. I was going to say he went all over the place, and that's nothing. That's nothing. You save the segment. Save the segment, Scotty.
This match was freaking awesome. There you go. I loved this match. Guys, CM Punk's having the time of his life all over again. He's literally doing the promo. Lariat, Kojima. Mm-hmm. And I'm just laughing, and the crowd is going crazy for when Kojima gets back on offense, hitting those shotgun chops. It was for me, this was the starting point to the show. It's why I wanted this match to go first.
Yeah.
Because same. I thought it was going to have the energy it needed to. Kojima, trading back and forth. I saw someone say like he didn't take a lariat. I don't know if people know this. People don't kick out of the lariat.
Yeah, it's his finisher.
That's literally like someone's like, "Oh, Punk didn't even take a lariat." Yeah, because he was winning the match. Yeah, that's exactly it. I thought this was great. I thought this was one of the best matches of the night. Better than 2 title matches. Better timeout. Better than 2 world title matches. I don't need to be attacked. I thought it was a lot of fun. CM Punk is good at wrestling. Satoshi Kojima is good at wrestling.
I feel like out of context, my upcoming quote is going to cause would cause controversy and get me canceled by a select group of fans. But what I love about CM Punk right now is how much of a shit stain he is, and just going out there and just being a fucking troll. Yeah. It's playing into it and it's feeding into it, and what it ends up doing is makes all the criticism towards him like a work in a way, feeding into the work. So it's
he has a shit grin.
Yes.
Every single moment.
Yes. Every single moment.
And then when he won the match, he stared into the camera, and then was like, He's really doing a good job. I mean, it's only been 2 weeks, obviously,
Yeah.
so things can change, but there's a reason he wanted to come back a heel.
Yeah.
He's going to be a heel. He is a heel.
Mm-hmm.
He is a Cody like heel at the moment, where he may be a baby face, but he's getting booed out of the building, but he's actually loving it. He's loving every second of it, and I thought this match it lived up to my hopes.
Yeah, I thought this match was pretty good. There were some parts where I thought it was dragging a smidge, but other than that, like I thought this match was really good. Like I'm sitting around like a 3.5 or something. Like I thought this was really good. I think the slow section was just like they just delayed the machine gun chops a little bit too long for me. Because
Yeah.
you knew that spot was coming, and it just delayed a little bit too long for me. But beyond that's a nitpick on a really good match. But yeah, CM Punk, I think he's doing solid work. The work he is doing is allowing the criticism to feed into his work, so that's smart. Kojima showed up and I think Kojima earned a G1 spot this year. I think he takes that Tanahashi and he takes that G1 spot for himself. That's what I want to say.
Shame is though, they won't treat him the same. They'll make his matches like 6 minutes.
Oh yeah, which
is so stupid.
And maybe that's why he needs to be back in Noah and do the N1 victory. You know, if Yuma Unzai's out, you know, let's bring in goddamn Satoshi Kojima again. Let's get the olds back in the N1, I guess. Will Ospreay, is he still up there?
He's just walking away.
All right, let's go through what he said. So apparently he was looking pretty happy the entire time, seemingly. Kate from Fightful asked if there was anything Ospreay learned from his first match with Omega to adjust to win this match. An in-character question, so you got an in-character answer, so who cares? Denise asked how Will felt going to the match and coming out of it. Will says a lot of anxiety, never felt like the world's eyes on him like he has been with these Omega matches. Maybe I didn't cope with it very well the first time. Liam Crowley, which I think is a fake name, says a lot of guys in the big matches barely wrestled leading up tonight, but he worked regularly. Also asks about the clap crowds. Will says the crowd reaction time is the best drug in the world. I don't know, Will. Okay, that's a Trevor doing a bit. Ospreay noted that his body is starting to break down. It's weird to me. This is an inside thing. Ospreay, you can't say that after Sting was just here. You can't say your body's starting to break down now. The guy is 60 and he's still going. He's like, oh, I can go past August. I'm fine. As a result, he thinks he'll be wrapping up his indie dates in the next year.
It's about goddamn time. No offense, but like he shouldn't be doing them anymore.
Well, because you have these US indie spots like GCW every once in a while, but then really his indie dates are Rev Pro.
Rev Pro and 1PW.
Yeah, so that's hurtful for Rev Pro. I think they've built up enough, but that's still like their biggest money drawing star for Rev Pro. So
he just shouldn't be doing it. There's too much money on the table that he should not be doing these anymore.
And I know like it has already felt like Ospreay has been like dwindling and leaning out of Rev Pro. And then around that same time, Zack Sabre Jr. joined back up with Rev Pro. So maybe that's the plan as well.
Zack wrestles a style though that doesn't destroy your body.
Yeah, but my point is that like Ospreay can start leaving Rev Pro and they're introducing Zack Sabre Jr.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Someone asks, Someone asked Will a question about rising to the next echelon. Will does not know what that word means, and Tony tells him it's the next level.
I love
Will says when TNA was going down, you always say, quote, at least they have AJ Styles. And he wants to be seen as that level of guy for New Japan, emphasizing that he loves New Japan Pro Wrestling.
New Japan's dying, and I want to be the guy that the people remember. That's what he said.
Will goes out of way to say he liked to be in the ring of Marufuji, calling him an idol of his. He says the balls of Noah thinks they can work something else.
Ospreay does like 75 different Marufuji moves.
Of course. Corey on The Observer wants an update on Will's shoulder. Will says it's a partial tear of his pectoral tendon. He's rehabbed it, but there's a hole there, deformity that is now permanent. His shoulder came out on a Stormbreaker, so there is some weakness there now. Will,
have we considered stop doing the move?
Will, your finisher can just be the hidden blade.
It's better than the Stormbreaker.
It could just be that, my guy. Ospreay's feeling fine though. Calls 13,000 people hating him tonight one of the best moments of his life. Will asks if he's going to get in trouble for the Canadian flag stuff. No, no, because Shawn Michaels did it decades ago. Sportsnet asks if the flag stuff was pre-planned. It doesn't appear to have been. Will says a 12-year-old was flipping him off, laughing that the young man must have terrible parents. Will's very happy, says he loves getting into trouble. Is Will going to work Wembley? Will says, listen, the date's free. He's working Rev Pro the day before of Shingo. And then he plugs that, and that's the Rev Pro 11th anniversary show, I think, in Rev Pro. So he's in the area, and he is free that day. So a non-answer, but it's possible. And I think that's what's going to happen.
Don Callis' guy, Will Ospreay.
Don Callis' guy, Will Ospreay. And I think that is pretty much it for William Ospreay. Because now
Tony's on the thing, so I'm sure there will be nothing.
She'll ask to wrestle Sky Blue again. AEW International.
She's not a good interviewer or interviewee.
Yeah. AEW International title for. I'm sure she's probably going to get.
She looks so bored.
Yeah, she looks very bored. She looked very bored last time. I would like and very hope that someone asks her questions about Mercedes. But we'll find out. AEW International title 4-way match. Orange Cassidy defeats Daniel Garcia, Katsuya Shibata, and Zack Sabre Jr. This match was way more comical than I thought it was going to be.
I liked it a lot. I thought this was the most violent Shibata's been, with strikes and stuff, taking them and giving them. I thought Shibata was the star of the match. Big shock there. I thought Zack was also the other star of the match, and the other two were there, which probably plays to my taste more than anything. Really good action. A lot like last year's 4-way, different style, obviously. Because I do think they played the comedic stuff, but that's Orange Cassidy, so it's part of it.
Well, it's also like the comedic element of like them doing those like sleepers, I think, on Shibata and Zack Sabre Jr. And then Shibata and Zack Sabre Jr. on like the third time still paintbrushing each other. It was just weirdly funny about it.
Yeah, I thought they did a good job. They made the match interesting because you don't want to be ultra serious every match either, because then it's all the same, and there's a lot of serious matches on this show, so I think they stood out really well. This was one of the better non big matches that we previewed earlier today, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think the match was pretty good. I thought everyone shined. I think everyone did their stuff really well. I would have liked to see more stuff out of Shibata. I don't think I got a full Shibata thing, but it's also 2023 Shibata, so I'm going to take what I can get at this point. The fact that he's still wrestling, it's all gravy at this point.
That's true. Yeah, you should just probably be happy with that at this, just because that's. It shouldn't be happening at all.
but at the same time, I'm saying that about Shibata when like I thought Daniel Garcia looked very good in this match. I thought he very much held his own, especially a guy that is the fourth guy in here with the least amount of experience, no championship belts to his name. And then they did a weird like tease at the end with like all three guys with the titles talking to each other. I don't know if that was teasing something or if that was just a, hey, we have all these championships.
Yeah, that's weird.
So I don't really know about what's happening.
I think I don't know. I'm kind of, as I've said many times, I'm ready for Orange Cassidy to lose this goddamn belt. Shibata had it won.
Yeah, so that's what's interesting. So Shibata has it won. He, I think it was PK'd Garcia, and then
Garcia's head off.
as he's kind of going for the pin, Orange Cassidy comes out of nowhere, shoves Shibata, and gets the pinfall. Skin of his teeth. Skin of the rind of his teeth, because he's an orange.
What? Good question. Why is Tony Storm still in her wrestling gear? Ospreay wasn't.
Interesting.
Ospreay wrestled after her.
Interesting. Ospreay's still bleeding though.
He's cleaned up.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, Orange, I don't know when he's gonna win. He's now, I believe they said this is the match where he's tied Jade's record. So I think that he'll win some more, and then we'll.
So happy Jade's record no longer matters. It's great. That was quick.
I don't think Orange will be champion by time All In and All Out happen.
Just give it to Takeshita.
Takesha's solid. I think Takesha's solid.
I would say so. This man jacked up Tomohiro Ishii tonight.
There's some scuttlebutt online that people think that it could be Wheeler Yuta.
Nasty. That's nasty. Are you kidding me?
He's picked up a lot of wins apparently recently.
Yeah, I just watched him get pinned by the pin eater himself.
Yeah, that's the converse of it all. IWGP World Heavyweight Title match. Sonata defeats Jack Perry. I thought this match was completely fine. Sonata's just doing his Ring of Honor gimmick of, let me do these spots, and it just felt like we were. It kind of just felt like we were sleepwalking.
Sonata treated it like AEW treated it,
which is didn't really care about it.
They gave him Jack Perry.
Yeah.
So he's not going to give full Sonata.
Yeah,
I think Sonata looks good in the 4 things he does. My favorite part is he won with the moonsault.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
like, fuck you. I'm not even winning with the skull end. I'm winning with the moonsault.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. Yeah, no, it just felt like a sleepwalk with Sonata, and then Jack Perry was there, and even then he was.
It was a fine match, pretty solid, nothing special. It's whatever. It was a match on the card.
You're not going to remember this match for the match. You're going to remember this match. I don't even know if I'm going to say we're going to remember this match for the thing afterwards. The story.
No, you won't remember the match at all. You're just going to remember the story afterwards.
Yeah. So Jack Perry turns on Hook. He's officially heel. He eats up the heel goodness. He looks at the FTW title. He walks out.
Incredible job, well done. Also, Tony Storm just walked away from the podium with her drink and food. Oh no, someone's telling Tony Khan something. The last time this happened, it was Brawl Out. No, they just gave him a Rainmaker buck, actually. That's very funny.
Very good. He probably asked for it.
But I thought the Jack Perry Hook stuff was great.
Oh yeah,
the crowd was awesome. Mm-hmm. I thought the crowd gave it the right reaction. I think Danielson has his arm in a brace.
Sure, gotta sell
it. I think the crowd sold it to perfection. Jack Perry, instant prick. He was an instant prick after this, doing the arm thing and being like, what? And I thought that was like instantly like, oh, this is what you've needed this whole time. You had this in you. You've had this bubbling up, and I could tell. I thought Taz was great on commentary.
Yeah, Taz really sold it.
Yeah. He's like, are you kidding me? And it's a real feud for Hook.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hook's like 50-0 and has no real feuds. Now he has one. He's not 50-0. But this is great for both of them. Yeah. I'm hopeful it works out. Based off what I know about their relationship, they're going to do their best to make it work for each other.
It needs to work for both of them, especially Jack Perry. This needs
especially Jack Perry.
If this heel turn doesn't work, he's fucked. He's not going to do well.
I saw you point out he was wearing the same colors as Luchasaurus.
Yeah, I looked at it. I was like,
I've been thinking he's going back with Christian Cage anyways.
Yes, but he's wearing like the exact same colors as Luchasaurus. I noticed. I also I love the idea of him going after only children of wrestlers. You know, like Christian's obsessed with dads, Jungle Boy's obsessed with sons. So you have Hook, You have Dustin Rhodes, you have El Hijo del Vikingo, you have the Gun Club, you have Brian Pillman Jr., Brock Anderson, Brody Lee Jr. You know, he can just take out all the children of wrestlers, and I think that's the move. I mean, you can already see his Twitter heelness acting up. Danhausen tweeting, "Hook, Danhausen would never do what Jangle Man Jack Jerry did," and Jungle Boy quoted it saying, "What? Have a good match? Fuck you." And you know what? I'm in for it. This is what
that
it
was
is.
awesome.
This is what's gonna be. I'm into it. Any other spots about the match or the promos or the post match promo? Taz really sold it. I think Taz did a great job selling it.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, Tony Storm walks out of the presser. This is back in the presser talk. She says apparently she's in full character. Calls the reporters a bunch of marks. Very sarcastic about loving doing pressers. Corey from The Observer asks about Tony wearing her Stardom gear, and I was about to make that note as well, that it very much was a shout out to her Stardom gear, black and red gear, and also about Julia having interest in facing and coming down and facing Willow. So will Tony face Julia? Tony wore the gear because it just happened to arrive in time. Great. Tony says she'll slap the tits off of Julia. Says she doesn't care. Quote, "Oh, do I look like a fucking mark to these people, Tony?" Great. Question about how does it feel for Tony to have the Outcast backing her up? Tony says that they're a sisterhood. Tony...
Terrible interviewee.
Sorry, now, Storm, I'm going to change it to Storm. Storm tells Khan that because I can't say Tony tells Tony. Storm tells Khan that if another girl breaks her nose, Khan's hair will be straight when she's done with her. All right. Apparently she says slap the tips off again in regards to Willow. Tony says she'll go to New Japan and she'll help Juice get out of any stupid situation he gets into. Tony putting over Willow and giving some vague positive talk about Stardom. Sort of continuing the New Japan stuff with her.
Brian is shoot hurt, by the way.
Shoot hurt. Oh, that's fun. Tony Storm calls losing to Thunder Rosa last year, quote, the most embarrassing day of her life. Ooh. Oh, great. There's really nothing here.
She's not good. Here, I'll give you a women's wrestler interview. This is what Julia said at Tokyo Sports. Shout out Tokyo Sports for getting these instant interviews. She said, "I will open the forbidden door by fighting against Willow Nightingale. I believe the red belt is worth more than the IWGP Women's title. And by the way, is Mercedes Moné currently sidelined with injury? Someday I would like to face her." So there you go. You just set up 7 different things in 3 sentences. Unlike Tony Storm, who just said she's slapping tits.
I like the idea that she's unsure. She's like, is she injured?
She injured. I don't really pay attention to New Japan. That's pretty much what she just said.
Let's talk about the 10-man tag. The Elite, Adam Page, Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson, Eddie Kingston, Tomohiro Ishii defeat Claudio Castagnoli, Jon Moxley, Wheeler Yuta, Konosuke Takeshita, and Shota Umino.
Second best match of the night.
My match of the night.
Oh shit!
That is possibly a hot take.
It's definitely gonna be a hot take.
I thought this match was fantastic. You know I love when wrestlers run full steam at each other. You know I love chaotic 10-man tags. This felt like I was watching fuck, what is it called? The old Dick Togo Taka Michinoko promotion back in the day. What the fuck is it called? Oh god, it's gonna ruin me until I figure this out. Oh god. Anyways, it felt like the promotion back in the day with Dick Togo and Taka Michinoko and all those guys, and they used to have big old Michinoku Pro. It felt like
that's still a promotion.
That's still a promotion. I forgot the name of it, but it felt like Michinoku Pro in the sense that
you didn't hear Taka Michinoku and think
No.
Okay.
But it felt like Michinoku Pro in the sense that like those multi-man tags were great because you understood every character's motivation and all of the characters' moves so that when something's happening, you know where it's going. And this entire match, I knew what everyone was meant to be doing, what everyone was doing. They built it basically just around Eddie Kingston, which I thought was a fantastic idea. Of like, there's the feud between BCC and the Elite, but really ultimately, because of Eddie Kingston's inclusion here, they built it around Eddie Kingston's relationship against Claudio, his relationship with Moxley. He takes a out of nowhere bullet for Moxley, and then Moxley comes around and does a cutter to him, and he gets all upset about that after the fact. I thought that was very interesting that he doesn't want to fight Moxley, but Moxley's like, "Well, you're against me, so screw you," which he said in that promo last Wednesday. Um, I thought the chaos was fantastic. The chaotic nature of these matches are always great. Fucking that elbow that Takeshita hit on Tomohiro Ishii was the loudest, biggest. I have never in my life seen a single person knock out Ishii like that. I think ever. That was fantastic. Takesha is a real dude for that one. That was so good. Everyone played their roles perfectly here. Everyone worked insanely well, and it. I love this match, dude. I thought this match was so great. I'm like 4 3/4 on it. I thought it was so great. I thought that um it has what I want, because I was also thinking about like that philosophy is like the Young Bucks, the Elite. What I like most about them is how themselves they are and how on the pulse they are of wrestling, of especially modern wrestling. Because it's like I like Punk, but like Punk is very much a old school throwback of a wrestler, which that is also fine. But then you get matches and feuds with Samoa Joe, ideas of Kenta, things with Satoshi Kojima. And I told you in Ring Post Radio this morning that the most excited thing for CM Punk that I am about is CM Punk versus Jay White. I'm more excited about that than anything else because I want to see something new with CM Punk. If I want to watch CM Punk versus Samoa Joe, there's a trilogy of matches that are fantastic. Not to saying that it's going to be bad or anything. That's just an example. I could say the same thing about Chris Jericho and Sting. Do I necessarily want to see Chris Jericho versus Sting? Not really, but it's a fun little throwback thing. But what I do like is the modernness. The feels like we're pushing the envelope, or pushing things forward, and that is what the energy that the Elite push. They do a lot of matches with character driven stories, character driven matches, which I think are fantastic. And not to say that CM Punk or anyone else is not doing character driven stuff, but it feels very much like that Michinoku Pro idea of everyone, the motivations of every single wrestler in these matches, even the heels, and it works extremely well. I love this match. Me gushing over it is making me think about 5, but I gotta think about that for a second. The fact that I'm considering it makes it a 4 3/4. So I don't know. I really love this match, Scotty. I thought this match was fan fucking tastic. Boy fucking howdy, my guy.
Reminder: CM Punk has only been back for 2 weeks. Anyways, let me talk about the match now. I thought this was tremendous. It was, 10 great wrestlers going in there and continuing stories, furthering stories, never getting lost in the match, if that makes sense. I think, with so many moving parts, so many moving parts, it's easy to it's easy to lose the story you're trying to tell, and I think that's like really important. They didn't do that. They never lost the story they were telling. You had, the Takeshita aspect and this new heel role, him getting booed out of the building. I was really wondering how would he get reactions now that Callis isn't out there with him. He got the reactions you want to see him get. How would the Moxley and Eddie Kingston stuff work? It was phenomenal. People were losing their minds. Meanwhile, Hangman and the Young Bucks are doing flips and dives and all the shit around it, which is awesome. Um, you just watch this match and you understand why the Blackpool Combat Club for your money is the best thing going in a lot of ways. Any match they have is must see. They are the best faction in professional wrestling. They are the best. No faction works better than them. If you told me that Wheeler Yuta was going to be like a perfect plug into a faction that has 3 absolute superstars, I would have laughed at you when it first happened. He still does feel like the odd guy out, but that's the point. In a lot of ways, he feels like he's the little, pissant that just bothers you that can go. Shooter was kind of just happy to be there, right?
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
but truthfully, he didn't have a main spot. Like,
No.
if you look at this match, he had no story in this.
Yeah, that's the one hole in my whole plea there is that Shooter didn't really have anything beyond like,
No.
oh, he has the connection to Moxley. And
Yeah, like he looked cool when they all walked out there. They looked awesome. That's good enough, I guess. I'm happy he was on the show though, because he gets credit for being in a great match. Congratulations to him. He didn't do anything bad. He didn't do anything standoutish. He was never really tagged in, to be fair. It was kind of everyone else.
His one standout moment to me was him doing the tag team sequence stuff with like Takeshita.
With Takeshita, yeah, that was pretty cool. Those two clicked instantly. I think Takeshita, he is everything and more that you want out of a Japanese star in America, if that makes sense. Like, how can they stand out, right? Because so many people act like the language barrier is a big deal. It's not. It really isn't. But he does it really well in that you can tell like how he's feeling, and he's just a great pro wrestler. I thought Ishii was excellent. Him and Takeshita just trading was beautiful.
I love
And
him and
Page.
I love him and Ishii and Eddie Kingston sharing the little Tenru spots.
Yes, and I think Hangman Page should he should probably be your next AEW World Champion.
Yeah.
Him beating MJF feels right. Like every time I see this guy get tagged in or something, he's your bona fide top baby face. Because Kenny's not going back to the world title ever, I don't think. Even though a babyface world title run for Kenny Omega is never a bad thing, I just don't think that's in his.
Yeah, he doesn't.
I don't think that's in his view.
He really
anymore.
doesn't need it.
So that leaves Page, and Page is your guy. And
if he's the one that takes down BCC, build him up to a world title. How do you not just
put him to be the guy to beat MJF? And that's one of their bigger matches. So this was fantastic. This was excellent. It exceeded expectations in a lot of ways because it's just so many things going on. I'm interested to see now what they do, though. With Danielson fractured arm, he said he's out 6 to 8 weeks. He fractured his forearm with 10 minutes left in the match, so legit injury. He'll be back for All In, but he's likely to miss Blood and Guts.
10 minutes into the match is probably where the seizure spot happened.
10 minutes left. So yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. That's interesting. Oh yeah, let's talk about his stuff. Brian asked about Final Countdown. Will we hear it more? Brian says that that's a Tony question because it costs $1 zillion per play. He didn't even know Tony got it. He was angry before he came out for the match, and the theme made him so happy. Why was Bryan Danielson angry before he came out for the match? Brian says he hadn't heard Final Countdown since the last time he came out to it. I never heard the song before again in my life. Someone asked about the match tonight in general. Could have been bigger. And Brian says you always have to work a match in terms of how it works with the totality of the show. And he did that tonight. Question about Brian's schedule. Danielson said he was going to wrestle on Dynamite. And he thinks he fractures forearm within 10 minutes to go.
Okay.
One. He thinks he fractures forearm with 10 minutes to go in the match. You're right. Doctors say 6 to 8 weeks recovery. And you're right. That would be August-ish. That would be whether or not he makes it for All In, All Out.
He'd be right before All In?
Yeah. Oof. Oof.
Which is preferable than not All In?
Yeah, you lose him from Blood and Guts, and that sucks. But maybe you can put a guy in there. I mean, is Takeshita? Are we counting Takeshita? If we're doing, we're assuming we're doing 4, right?
8 weeks is the 21st, which is the week leading into All In.
So it could be
maximum weight. He's still good.
So if we're doing 4 of the Elite, Omega, Page, and the Young Bucks. Yeah, you can do Takeshita, and it's still fine, and it still works.
Easy. If they were planning to bring in a 5th guy, then you just subtract whoever we don't know about.
Yeah, if the Ibushi stuff is happening then or whatever.
I give up on Ibushi. I'm so done talking about that guy.
Exactly. Brian puts over the medical staff.
The medical staff that said you're having a seizure, go back in there, buddy.
Says he worked MJF in the Iron Man match with a torn labrum. But he says he describes that as just wrestler stuff. Brian is asked about tonight's match. Brian has been looking forward to it for years. Says he was in WWE and Okada had a series of Tanahashi. Brian never thought it was possible, but Tony and AEW made it happen. Brian asked if he changed anything about the match tonight. Brian says he doesn't know. He talks about being proud and saying he knew he fractured his forearm and chose to keep going and doesn't regret it at all. His favorite moments are when you choose to go over stop like that. Again, Randy Orton, Daniel Bryan. Question, does Brian have any other bucket list opponents? Brian says so many, but he wants to face Okada and break his arm. Says he loves wrestling so much, the worst thing he can do is take it away from him. That's all I got from Brian Danielson.
He's still going.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be more in a moment.
Tell his body to not break.
Last 2 matches we have to cover here. The AEW Women's World Title match between Toni Storm and Willow Nightingale. I thought this was a pretty good match. We had some tiny shenanigans, but we quickly threw it aside, and I thought this was nice, short, to the point, pretty good. I thought it was well worked. I thought it was, solid match.
My biggest takeaway is that they said that the Julia match is happening in July in Cork, and so, like I said, Independence Day.
Mm-hmm.
That was my biggest takeaway from the match. It was good work. It was. Here's the thing, and I think it's time to be frank about this. The women's matches aren't the crowds that show up aren't there for women's wrestling.
No,
let's just be honest. They're there for New Japan Pro Wrestling. That's why, I don't need Stardom on these shows. And I feel that more and more as I watch a match like this, that's kind of still in the same spot as Tony and Thunder Rosa from last year, where it's just kind of, oh, it was a good match. Let's move on.
But to be fair, though, this match supposedly was going to be Tony versus Mercedes Moné. This match would have been treated.
Saraya.
Well, we don't.
Mercedes and Saraya.
You know that for a fact? Okay, then Saraya versus Mercedes Moné. I would still think that the crowd would take Mercedes Moné match more seriously.
Well, absolutely. She's just a bigger star than everyone.
Mm-hmm. So, but to that point, I feel like if a Stardom wrestler came in, I would like to think that the crowd would know who they are. If Mayu Iwatani came in, I would like to think they know who they are and they would take it seriously.
But Mercedes Moné is a very different person from a Stardom wrestler.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, who's more famous? It's probably Mercedes, then Mayu, and then like Julia. You know, if
I
we
think
had to rank the
Mercedes
three
is
of them.
probably the most famous women's wrestler in the world, to be fair.
Yes, agreed.
So
No, agreed. No, but I think you bring up a great point about like the crowds here aren't. I mean, they were chanting for tables. You know, we want tables, right? Like they in a match that's no DQ or that isn't no DQ. It has
right.
disqualifications on. We've talked about this before when it came to like how people treat the women's divisions in AEW, where you know if their ratings were better, then they would be treated on a more equal plane, and it's because well the ratings and everything showcase that the women's division is on par with the tag team division, and so it should get as much treatment as the tag team division does. One could argue the tag team division gets more or less than the women's, but that's its own thing. The crowd isn't as into the women's stuff as it is for the men's stuff, and I think that's a fair point, and that's a fair concern. Is that I'm uh, I'm I'm guessing, Scotty, that as a Stardom fan, you don't want your Stardom wrestlers to feel diminished to fans who won't appreciate the Stardom wrestlers. Is that a
That
fair
is
assumption?
correct. I watched a match today that had Tommy Hayashida walking out looking like the biggest star in pro wrestling. If you put a Tommy Hayashida across Tony Storm today, I can almost guarantee you I would not have walked away having that feeling in any way, shape, or form. They could have went out there for 15 minutes. I'm pretty confident that would not have been the case because it comes down to crowd. And I we know what the crowd's there for. The crowd's New Japan heavy.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same conversation that people have when there's discussions of putting Stardom matches on New Japan shows. It works sometimes, but not all the time.
And really, the biggest pro that people come up with those things are growth for Stardom,
Yeah, which
and that
is
is,
a good thing,
but also who knows, right? I mean, I don't have those
right?
numbers.
I, yeah, it's a tough. It's a tough. Look, if New Japan were booking Stardom on more of their shows, I'd be like, yeah, have them on the AEW Forbidden Door show, but they're not having them on them. They made these titles for no reason other than Mercedes Moné was there, and
Yeah.
now she's not.
And there's still a strong contingent reportedly in the back for New Japan that don't want the women still on the shows. That's not a sexist thing. That's more like a traditional thing, but it's
Which
still
is
there.
in some ways a sexist thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I only say that as like it's not stemming from that. It's stemming
Noah's
from
lapping them in growing in multiple levels. And what I mean by that is Noah has somehow, without having a division of its own, accepted women's wrestling on their cards a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And I think that has a lot to do with the Keiji Muto influence because he was someone with Wrestle One that had women's wrestling on those shows. And I do think that helped them get in the door, along with other things, of course. But now it's like they're just putting them on all their major shows. If they have a major show, there's a women's match.
So what you're saying is that when it comes to women's wrestling, Keiji Muto is the forbidden door.
You're goddamn right.
I think that's a fair point, though, is that there is concern. I do still think that like
fans online are different from the fans going to the shows, and I will always say that.
Oh yeah, well, I 100% agree with that.
People
Scotty.
forget that. Like, no, but I'm talking about the people that are like, "Oh, you don't want Stardom on the show." No, I do want Stardom on the show, but I want them to be respected. I don't want them just there to be there.
I think the only way, but to counteract that, I think the only way to find that out is to have a Stardom wrestler on the show.
It is, and that's true. But if they're going to end up losing, then
which is
losing
probably
in a 10-minute match like this. Yeah. Say you take Willow out, you put in
Mercedes,
Julia, or Mercedes is different. Mercedes is I consider her a different entity altogether.
Fair.
Put in Saya Kamatani. Just put in someone. I don't know if they're going to do enough to, one, showcase Saya Kamatani, or two, make people walk away saying, "Oh, I need to watch Stardom."
Yeah.
Now we don't know until we try, and that's why I'm always willing to try.
It worked.
But I'm also not.
It worked with the Joshi to a certain extent when they first came to AEW, but it wasn't necessarily. But to that same point, didn't allow people to go out and watch Joshi wrestling. They just asked for more Joshis in AEW.
It worked for the Joshi online, but there's a reason Tony Khan doesn't use the Joshi all that much otherwise.
There's a reason
Clearly, there's
Riho
something
doesn't
we
exist.
aren't seeing. Riho doesn't exist. She's not a person.
Mm-hmm.
Hikaru Shida's in and out like every other month, and Emi Sakura is the only one around.
Yeah, and Yuka Sakazaki is in the game, and I don't
she's
know.
Coming.
I don't know the last time she wrestled.
Yeah, she went over to the US for an entire month and didn't wrestle.
Didn't she? She did a Ring of Honor show. I know that much.
She's currently injured, to be fair.
Yeah,
but
still,
so that's probably why. But still, she went over for a month and did like nothing.
Yeah, I think your points are valid. I think there is an element of you can only find out when it happens and see who I think Julie is a good person. I think an American audience would like Julie the most out of anybody.
Oh, absolutely. I think that goes without question.
And so, yeah, I think it's you have to test it out, but I think it's completely fair that like it could easily just be like, I mean, you talk about 10-minute matches, but like there's a question of which match or matches got more time on the show because the show didn't have Adam Cole versus Tom Lawler. So was it the women's match? Did they get more time?
It's possible.
Would Julia have come over and they had a 6-minute match or whatever? These are fair questions, and I do think you're coming at it pessimistically, but I don't think it's your reasoning is unfounded. And
I'm absolutely coming at it pessimistically, and I'm not someone that's saying I never want them to work together.
Of course,
I'm someone saying that you should. The people that are like, oh, they can just send someone over easily. It's like, no, they can't.
You shouldn't send over someone just because you should send over. Just because you have to send someone over.
It's not it's not like send someone over for the token match. It's send someone over if you have a plan, you're gonna execute it. And that's why I like the Julia stuff's exciting for a lot of people because it does seem like a plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I prefer that than had they just tossed her on this show.
I completely agree. I completely agree with you. I think that's completely
Julia's fair. Julia is in the Io, Asuka, Kyrie range. She's not in the, no offense, I know a lot of people love them, but she's not in the Shida Riho range. She can be someone that does make a lot of fans, like Io did. I don't think that's what Shida and Riho are. I never have. So, but that's a conversation for a never-ending conversation, I should say, that we will never have an answer to.
That's
until something more happens. But at the very least, it's nice to see that this match was given the time it was. Willow's good. Tony's good. Unless it's interviews. Tony just feels like she doesn't want to do anything that she has to. Does that make sense?
No, I get it. I
watched her attitude this entire time. It's like
it's part of the gimmick.
It is, but like I don't know, be professional.
Yeah, I get you. I get where you're coming from.
No, I don't think she has that kind of charisma. Like I don't think she's a mic person, anyways. But still.
Brian Anderson presser. He there's a lot of stuff, and I think Tony Khan's now answering questions. But where was I? Brian says he's gonna slap Yuta for losing tonight. Says he wanted to face Ishii for revenge. Sounds like that would have been the match for this weekend's Dynamite, but that's out of the window. Darn. We could have gotten Ishii versus Danielson this Wednesday.
I hate wrestling.
Someone asked Brian about spicing up Okada rematches with Stips. Brian says he doesn't worry about those things. He just loves wrestling the best people in the world. Hey, why don't you make your match a stretcher match against Okada? Nah, I'm good, man. Brian says he's grateful they have New Japan as a partner. Puts over the show tonight. In terms of matches, Brian says he'll do whatever Tony asks of him to do, but he wants revenge on Okada. Question about how hard it was for Brian Okada to follow Ospreay Omega. Brian says, quote, I didn't want to follow them. Ask Tony, and laughs. Brian again says he was angry before his match about something, quote, unrelated to wrestling. What the fuck is happening with Brian Danielson? Brian talks about his dad a little bit. Questions about working elsewhere in addition to AEW. Brian is, but his main focus is AEW. He has lofty goals, but he's 42 and had to ask himself, quote, is it smart for me to do the G1? Maybe not. Would love to work Defy, but asked himself the same thing. Is it worth the risk? Yeah, man. Work Defy against fucking, I don't know, who's the Defy guy? Shaft or some bullshit. Just do that.
The fact is, his body can't handle a lot of things anymore.
Look, man, I watched Tanahashi have a match and you have a match. You can do the G1. And Sting's like,
he breaks down a lot more, though.
That's true.
Clearly, he's had 2 straight big-time matches where he's gone terribly hurt.
A listen live in Spaces notification just popped up, and it says talk AEW with Val Venus. No.
Couldn't want to do something less.
John Pollock asked Brian about Omega taking the Tiger Driver 91 and wrestlers dancing so close to the line on big spots like that. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was vomiting at the thought of when I watched that.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah, that spot was awful. Brian thinks you have to skate the line. Notes that John Cena tore his pec on a simple hip toss. All right. That didn't really answer the question, but all right. Brian says he asked the AEW trainers, can I do this? Can I do that? And sometimes they'll be very frank with him and tell him he can't do certain things. Says the Tiger Driver 91 does scare him because of the injury potential. Brian says there are spots he did to get noticed coming up that he wouldn't do today, and generally doesn't have the answer to the question of are spots like the Tiger Driver 91 worth it, but does think people should go over spots with trainers. We can assume that spot was put over with trainers with Omega, but it's also Omega, so who the heck knows? Brian asked if I assume that when he says Brian, it's Alvarez. Asked if his broken arm changed the last 10 minutes of the match. Brian goes on about how he's a magician and won't tell his secrets. And then says, yes, it did change my plans. So, match changed because of the injury. I'm trying to see if there was anything else. I know I'm reading a Twitter thread, and that's always fun. Brian says his arm got broken from, he thinks, the Okada elbow drop. It might have been giving him one, but he doesn't think so. He says it's sort of a freak accident. Question about working Zack Sabre Jr. or Will Ospreay. Danielson says he'd love to work Zack. Going over working him early in Zack's career. He'd love to work Ospreay too, but also wants to work a ton of AEW people. Still wants to wrestle a bunch. Brian says that they haven't done Brian Omega 2 yet. He has a few matches with Punk and WWE, but not a big one. He'd like to work Samoa Joe, Darby, Orange Cassidy. I'm shocked that we still haven't gotten a Bryan Danielson Darby or Bryan Danielson Orange Cassidy match yet.
Bryan Danielson's had an admittedly weird run in AEW. When I say that, it's just think of like the ins and outs of when he's been around and like what they've done with him, right? Like when he first came in, he had like this world beater type run, right? Started with Omega, sensational stuff there. The Suzuki match, the Eddie Kingston match. Then he had the feud with Moxley to go to Blackpool Combat Club. Then he got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Then he got stuck with fucking Chris Jericho forever, right? And then he finally turns it around to the MJF stuff.
Yeah.
Gets shit ton of matches in there,
Mm-hmm.
right? Roosh.
Baby, that's what I'm talking about.
Takeshita, like all these people. Gets the MJF match, and then he's hurt again. And this is really his first big singles match since then. So it's been weird. It's not shocking we haven't got all of them, just because he's doing a lot, but also not wrestling a lot, if that makes sense.
Yeah. He mentioned Orange as well, but he also says he would like to work Pac. Where's Pac? What happened to him?
Well, he broke his nose, and then he went home.
Yeah. He'll pop back up. We gotta start building up to Wembley. He'll pop back up at some point. Now we just have Tony at the presser. I'll do this real first before we get to the last match. Tony says Ring of Honor isn't developmental for AEW by any means. Come on, Tony.
Come on, man. Just say it. It's not developmental by any means, except every match on the cards, except for like the Kingdom and the Champions, are developmental matches.
He says it is a place where he can take looks at guys because of the freedom he has with it as a streaming show of no commercials and different time restraints. He's basically that fully reads to me as I got rid of Dark because of the Warner Brothers exclusivity deal or whatever, and I just fully turned Ring of Honor into what Dark kind of was. That's what that reads to me. Tony thinks the current Ring of Honor champions are as good as anywhere else. Yeah.
Did you know the Lucha Bros are the tag team champions? Because I forgot.
Someone asked Tony Khan about if he played Fight Forever yet and what's his favorite mode. What? Who gives a shit?
What was the answer?
He likes the ladder matches.
I was hoping he said no.
No.
People shouldn't be allowed to ask questions.
Yeah, these are not as good questions as the media call. Tony feels like AEW has a lot of good momentum right now. Of course he does. He's a promoter. Tony thinks going to Montreal would be great. He'd love to run there. He'd love to come back to Canada. They just did some of their best Canadian TV ratings, and tonight was their best live gate in company history in Canada. Tony said the live gate tonight was over $1.2 million or Canadian dollars. I don't know. But yeah, he's very high on Canada. But according to some of those Collision ticket sales, Canada's not so high on you, Mr. Tony Khan. Asked for an Omega health update. Tony hasn't gotten word, but says he thinks he'll be okay. Tony says it was a scary match, and he's glad people are asking questions about it. So let's talk about that match. The IWGP US Heavyweight title match. Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay. Scotty, this was your match of the night. Talk to the folks at home about this match.
They're just so good. Kenny Omega. Mm-hmm. I love Okada. I love Danielson. Mm-hmm. Love them. Love them.
Big Ishii ELP guy.
Take it back. But there's no one like Kenny Omega. Ever. Like, you can't replicate Kenny Omega. His movements, his impact, his ability to be himself 100% of the time in every single match.
He's one of a kind.
He is. And I think Okada and Danielson are generational workers as well. I'm not saying they're not.
Yeah.
But when I watch Kenny Omega, I know he's going to deliver. And yet I'm still amazed when he does things. And when I watch Will Ospreay, I watch a guy who has changed the indies through his own style, but he's not Kenny Omega.
I'm so glad you brought that point up. Because I was thinking the exact same thing. Because that's the story of the match, right?
Yep.
The beginning of the match, to take control of the match, he does Kenny Omega from Wrestle Kingdom earlier this year. He then steals a flag and does Shawn Michaels in Canada. Rubs his butt with it, picks his nose. Then he does a sharpshooter. Bret Hart, I assume. Or maybe still Shawn Michaels.
I'm going to assume it's Bret Hart.
Then you could argue he does...
Then he does the Benoit crossface.
John Cena, ST... But then you could argue that he did Ospreay, right? But did he do 2023 Ospreay? Or did he do 2018 Ospreay? And then he does the Tiger Driver, which is Masawa, right?
Yeah. That was disgusting. That's what it was.
That's true.
Absolutely disgusting.
But in the story of like, he is, and they said it afterwards that like, oh, Ospreay, Excalibur exclaimed, Osprey is taking taking over the shoes that Omega has left or whatever. He has, but he's not Omega. He's not even like himself. He's still he was only able to win this match by replicating other people.
The reason a third match will happen is much of the reason that the Okada Osprey story still goes on, despite Osprey having a win over Okada. And it's that he's never beaten these two as Will Osprey.
And he's never beaten Okada in the Dome.
No,
and
he's never beaten Okada clean.
True. That's more true. It was the Great Okan debut. How can we forget?
Right. He's never beaten Okada clean. And he's never beaten Kenny Omega clean.
And he's definitely never beaten Omega in his home turf of Japan. Or maybe his home turf of England. Huh? Huh?
Possible.
Neutral ground.
and for me, that was the beauty of the match.
Yeah.
You have to have, and a lot of people just look at this in the simplest way. This was a all-time I'm just going off what people say. It's an all-time professional wrestling match between two of the best in the world. They followed up their first match with a great match here. That's what a lot of people look at it. But the reason I think it stands out so much is because it continues to tell the Will Ospreay story, is that Will Ospreay doesn't beat the top guys unless he goes away from being Will Ospreay and cheats. His entire overall overarching story is he needs to beat these guys by being Will Ospreay. And that's going to continue to drag him down until he does it. That's the whole Okada story that I was hoping they'd run back with Okada. Okada being IWGP champion, Ospreay going on to win the G1. That would be your Wrestle Kingdom main event next year. It's not going to be. They don't even know if Will Ospreay will be there anymore at the end of January next year. I don't know if he'll be there anymore at the end of next year. I don't know how every time he appears in AEW, he feels like one of the biggest stars in the world.
And this was like the match that sold himself to the AEW audience.
And he will get paid a lot of money from AEW to just work AEW. Right? And I think that's something that's definitely going to be in consideration for him when that comes around. But for now, he's here. Back to Kenny Omega. He is a psychotic professional wrestler. He does things that no person should be doing who has been as banged up as him, who has been as injured as him, who has went through the matches he's gone through. He shouldn't be doing this, but he does it because he's the best. He's one of a kind. He's an all-timer. If you call him the best of all time, I'm not going to second guess you. I'm just going to ask you to tell me your favorite match of his. That's all I'm going to ask you, because he has so many against so many different opponents, right? He has now 2 great matches with Will Ospreay. He has the 4 with Okada. He has countless ones with Naito. He has ones with Ibushi.
Ishii.
List goes on.
He has great
Ishii,
ones with Ishii.
He has great matches with.
A one with Danielson.
Fucking Michael Elgin he has a great match with. Jesus Christ. He has great matches with everyone. And Danielson, that's another match he needs to, they need to follow that up. But I watched Kenny Omega in amazement. That is where I'm at in my pro wrestling fandom. I watch him in amazement. I watch him knowing that he's going to deliver one of the best matches of the year anytime he's in a spot like this, and still being in shock. When he put that foot on the rope on the Stormbreaker, leaped out of my chair. Because I was like, I know you're still going to lose, but you're still giving me that hope, and that's how you tell a great story. You create hope even when you come down to this cheating. And I think the Don Callis stuff is intriguing. I think Konosuke Takeshita is going to have the best match of his career against Kenny Omega very, very soon. Kenny Omega is about making people right now. You don't need to make Will Ospreay because he's already seen as one of the best. And Will Ospreay needs Kenny Omega more than Kenny Omega needs him.
Sure.
That's where I'm at, right? That's how we're building the Will Ospreay heavyweight persona.
Well, Kenny Omega doesn't really need anyone at this point.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't need anyone. And that's the beauty of it. But he is helping so many different people. I can name 5 different matches this year that Kenny's had fantastic matches with. You have the Vikingo match, obviously great, completely different style. You have the Ospreay matches, both different, both similar, but both different in that they're just spectacular. Obviously,
similar setups, but like worked completely differently.
Right. You have the match with Jon Moxley in the steel cage. Again, completely different. And you have the countless trios and tags and stuff with the Elite. Right?
I'll just say the
match too?
Game 6, Game 7 or whatever of
the ladder match?
Yeah, the De La Muerte match.
Yeah, that's Game 7. So, yeah, there you go. Those are all such different matches, and yet all you remember from each of them is what Kenny Omega did. And I think that's just, again, a reason why he is here. And I think everyone else will be a step below him as long as he can compete at this high level. And it's not going to last forever. So I tell everyone, appreciate it, enjoy it, because it's going to stop eventually. Truthfully, I think you can agree with me. We thought it was done, right? And then he came back from injury, and he was him again, just a little more grounded. Some dinkheads online will say, "Oh, this isn't Kenny Omega of old." Shut up. Kenny Omega's he's the best. He's just the best, and I love this match. I thought the finish was great. Ospreay winning was the right choice.
Yeah,
that was my prediction. I know a lot of people that thought Kenny wins, but
I do think though that like based on the story that we kind of laid out, there is also a possibility that Omega could have won that. And just
They didn't. Here's the thing: they didn't do any dives.
Yeah.
Besides the corkscrew that Ospreay did,
the Sky Twister press.
We didn't get the Terminator dive. We didn't get any of the super flashy stuff. These mother truckers, they're holding in for one more because that's just the creativity they have.
It was an old school match with a modern twist.
Yeah. And those are my favorite matches, I think, these days, truthfully, is the old school matches with a modern twist. Yeah, this was great. It's funny because my friend came over to watch Danielson and Okada. He didn't even stay for it because work in the morning.
Sure.
And the show's going forever. He's left after Ospreay and Omega, and I texted him, "You made the right choice." Not because Okada and Danielson was bad, but there was no following that match, I think, for them. Unless, Danielson got hurt. But maybe if Danielson didn't get hurt, we have a different conversation today. Truthfully, I think that's definitely part of it, which makes me sad because I don't think they're ever going to run it back now.
Probably not. I don't think so.
But you know what? That's okay. We have the one.
Yeah, I'm happy with the one. But yeah, unless they like blow it off into a feud, but like that feud would come like maybe a year or two down the line because Okada's already feuding with 12 different people at the same time right now.
If Danielson ever gets to Japan, it's for that match.
Yeah, I would think so. And then Okada can beat him in Japan. That makes sense.
Because the reason I think you go back to it is because Okada lost.
Yeah. and
He
tapped
kind of
out.
doesn't lose.
And tapped out.
Yeah, you need to make up for that. And I'm sure he was going to tap out either way because, I mean, you could have pinned him with a Psycho knee. You didn't need an arm for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. That is very true.
So he was always going to tap.
Mm-hmm.
He just had to tap to something that looked far more painful than the lapel lock.
Yeah, and it worked.
Which I prefer.
It worked.
I just was shocked. But what a show, huh?
What a show. This show was fantastic. There was so much great stuff. So much great stuff top down. You know.
What's your top 5 matches? Go in order.
The 10-man tag.
Yep.
The Omega Ospreay.
Yep.
Danielson Okada.
Yep.
That was
real original.
I know that easy. The top 3 are easy. And then from there, probably will say I'm between flip-flopping between the Punk match and the Orange Cassidy match. I'll probably say Punk 4 and then Orange Cassidy 5. That'd be my top 5 matches from this show.
Yeah, mine's Kenneth and Billiam.
Mm-hmm.
Then the 10-man, then Danielson and Okada, Punk and Kojima, and yeah, it has to be the 4-way.
And then Naito, Darby. Let's finish up here with I think Tony is at the presser right now, so let's just see if he has anything to say.
He's still going.
Yeah, we'll probably end before Tony's fully done.
Doesn't he know people want to go to bed?
No, of course not. Tony's asked about graphics for Dynamite, and he says that he still gets people talking about the 2019 rainbow powder look, and he loves it too. So never say never on that coming back. That's just interesting. This is an interesting quote. Tony says sometimes with production details, you lose the forest through the trees, booking 4 different wrestling shows. So he's saying by booking 4 different wrestling shows, that is probably part of the reason why he didn't have the correct wrestling music for some of the wrestlers. Interesting. You should hire someone to do that. Hire someone to make sure you have all the music correct.
Oh no.
I'm just saying. Tony says pay-per-view buys for this year's Forbidden Door are bigger than last year's and Double or Nothing. Double or Nothing is not a shock at all, but last year's, if I recall, were pretty good. So that's very good. How bigger, we'll find out, but that's already pretty good. Let's see if there's anything else. He says the launch of Collision has gone really well and throws it into calling this one of the best weeks in AEW history. Tony says he likes Tom Lawler a lot and will keep a match with him and Cole in mind for the future. All right, here we go. Brandon Thurston for WrestleNomics asks about, is it a conscious decision for Punk to not be at the presser? That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, Thurston. Tony says he's done a lot of media and he'll be happy to do a presser of Punk. Trevor Dane writes in all caps.
Liar.
Trevor Dane writes in all caps. Prove it, you coward.
You think Punk reads that and just smiles?
I hope so. He's gonna probably do an Instagram thing and try to have some sort of rancid song be the song for the video.
It's always a rancid song.
Tony says he's sure they'll get Punk doing even more media to promote AEW this week. Brandon also asks how we're gonna be able to see All In. Tony can't tell us yet. He's working out some international stuff, but reiterates that we'll be able to watch it. Interesting.
We better be able to watch it. We're gonna have a conversation if we didn't. Oh yeah, biggest show ever. You can't watch it.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it for what he's got so far. I want to see what the Forbidden. I guess I can go to WrestleNomics.com. That'll probably have my answers.
ForbiddenWrestleNomics.com.
Yeah, it's the ForbiddenWrestleNomics.com. More resources. AEW pay-per-view buys. I want to see.
Hey, why hasn't anyone just booked good wrestlers all the time?
So he is saying that this show would have done more than Forbidden Door last year. Last year it was 140,000. I don't have Double or Nothing in front of me here, but the estimate right now at Forbidden Door last year was 140,000. So if it did more than that, we're talking maybe Full Gear from 2021 at 155,000. We're talking as high as Double or Nothing 2022, Revolution 175. I doubt it's All Out, CM Punk's debut in 2021 with 215, but if we're talking, 150 area, 160, that's good. That's a pretty good pay-per-view buy, and we'll see how it goes, but that's pretty good. AEW's got good business going, man. They're do you see all these tweets about like how AEW business is failing and that like they're still being compared to WWE and not getting $1 billion deals and all this stuff, and it's just like they're this level of business in 5 years.
I'm just worried about this Canada stretch.
The Collision.
That's all I'm worried about.
Yeah.
No, all around. They're in Canada for the next month.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they're gonna tire out Canada. I think. I don't think they should have done all this. I mean,
they're not running the right Canada spots. Regina? You kidding me?
Yeah, I wish they were more mobile in Canada, or at the very least, run Collision in Canada or something like that, and like Dynamite in like.
Well, they have sets.
Somewhere. No, I get that. But yeah. We'll last thing.
Mm-hmm. I have a gripe.
Mm-hmm.
I need companies, this company especially, to stop running the hell out of a location before your pay-per-view. Looking at you, Chicago for United Center. Oh, we're gonna hit the Now Arena for Dynamite, then the United Center for Collision, and then our pay-per-view in the United Center.
Yeah, I believe the stretch there is Duluth, Georgia, London, England for Wembley, Chicago.
If you want to do a full stretch of shows in the same town, do the pay-per-view first.
Yeah, I agree.
The pay-per-view matters more.
Yeah.
You want your hottest crowd then. They're going to be tired as shit by the end of that.
Because then you might get... I would think in theory...
That's how WWE has done this. They'll do the full weekends.
Mm-hmm.
SmackDown, whatever, mm-hmm. NXT and Raw.
And you could do it as like a bundle and all this other stuff. I would think in theory, if you did the pay-per-view first and then you had the return home show after that or whatever, also in Chicago, you would think that maybe there would be people walking out of the pay-per-view and thinking, that was great, I have to see the return home and buy some tickets.
Yes, because I don't know if you know this, Ryan, Tony Khan and go-home shows aren't always the best.
I know, and the go-home show for Wembley is in Duluth, Georgia. I'm in August. I am unsure if I want to go or not. It's the go home show.
How do you go from Duluth, Georgia to Wembley?
I don't know, man. London? I don't know, man. But but that is the thing. I'm sitting here like, man.
You would think it would be no question because it's a go home show out of their biggest show ever.
Yes.
But it's like Tony Khan doesn't book go home shows like a normal human being.
No. And so, I don't know, man. I'll figure that out later. But at the same time, what I might just end up doing is like buying the ticket like the day of or the week of or something.
Yeah, because they're not going to sell out.
They're not going to sell out. And when they start doing that, they're going to start making the tickets super cheap. And it might not be like great seats per se, but the seats will be super cheap. So that's fine.
Yeah, it's probably a better choice. Wait and see.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
Wait and see what's being booked around that time.
Also true. It'd be the go home for Wembley, so you would have to think, whatever we got in Wembley will be happening. So
you would hope that Wembley's their best card ever.
One would hope. One would think. One would think it's possible.
I don't know. Trying to predict Tony Khan's like trying to predict Juice Robinson.
Weird analogy, and that's how we'll end the show. Thank you everybody for joining us on Patreon. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you everybody for listening to the show on Patreon, patreon.com/CountOutPod. If you're listening to the audio only version of this, we thank you as well, but you're missing the whole story. And that is by subscribing to patreon.com/countoutpod and getting all of our content, including joining us for these live shows and getting our exclusive content on patreon.com/countoutpod. I have been Ryan. You can follow me on Twitter at Ryan Knightsey. That has been Scotty. You can follow him on Twitter at Scott E Wrestling. The whole show is Ring Post Radio. Subscribe to the full podcast wherever you get podcasts. And until next time, we will talk to you all later. Goodbye.
So, Curtis.
Yeah, man.
Count said we've got to do an ad. I've never done one before. What should we do?
I have no idea, bro. I ever made an ad before. What are we doing an ad for?
I don't know. We just say we're like a New Japan Pro Wrestling podcast, and we just put a bunch of clips like here.
Arguably the most shredded guy. So you really want to get there too.
Maybe a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Heard that here. Michael Richards calling Jay White small compared to him. Here.
I love it. This picture you've painted for me. I want to hang it up. I want to frame it and hang it up in my bedroom.
Yeah.
We don't have a WWE tryout or a New Japan tryout every second week, and now I'm in Bullet Club.
And here,
Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega. Do you want to just go off about this match?
how do you take or talk about one of, I think, probably the best matches you've ever seen? That's an ad, right?
Yeah, that works. That's brilliant because then all our work's already been done for us and we don't have to do anything.
Aha, past us did it. Present us living in the now.
Look at us.
Look
at
at that.
us being friggin' brilliant.
Mate, minimum effort, maximum output. Okada Shorts podcast. Check it out on the Count Out Network at Okada Shorts. Rate and subscribe, listen or die.
This has been a Count Out Podcast.